works here at the collaborative, but she is our expert in, ensuring that there's housing that will be available, but also partnership manager. She's a partnership manager here with the Southwest Florida Home Coalition Collaboratory. It's a collective that is impacting initiative working to ensure that 80% of people in the five-county area of Southwest Florida have access to housing and transportation that costs less than 45% of their income by the year 2040. And that's a wonderful initiative. Through collaborative efforts, coalition partners are use collective impact of strategies to increase housing choices, remove barriers, and make system changes. In addition, we also have CJ Reynolds, excuse me. CJ is the Director for Resilience and Disaster Recovery with the Florida Housing Coalition. Thank you so much. Which is a statewide nonprofit providing training and technical assistance and policy advocacy on all aspects of affordable housing. Ms. Reynolds leads statewide initiatives in partnership with state and federal agencies focused on short and long-term housing recovery after disaster recovery. So this is really important because, as you know, we've been through a lot of disasters lately. So CJ is going to be will be one of the last of the speakers to speak. In addition, I just wanted to go over some rules of the road. Restrooms are to your left when you come out the doors here. If you go to your left, you'll be able to access the restrooms there, as well as refreshments are available, and at the from the collaboratory, they're wonderful enough to provide the refreshments, coffee and tea and water as well. Also, phones. We want to make sure that we silence our phones. This is very, very important information. I've literally turned mine off because my grandson has called me 3 times already because he's learned how to do FaceTime. So I'll just have to explain that to him afterwards. But just making sure that we're able to listen, to focus, and also ask those important questions that we have. This is what League of Women Voters, which I'm so dedicated to ensure that we can have this information, get the experts that we need in our community to come and be able to address them. In addition, we have these cards that are going to be available on each one of your tables. If you do have any questions, please write those cards. If you're anything like me, once these speakers speak and I have that question in my brain, it's gone in 10 minutes or less for me. So please write your questions. They're important to us. If they're important to you, they're important to us. And we want to make sure that we address each and every question that you have. Okay? If you do have any questions, just raise your hand. And at the end of everyone speaking, we'll just go around and we'll pick those questions up and I'll be able to address them with the speakers. Are there any questions before we start? Okay, so thank you again. And what I like to do is give each one of our speakers an opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them and come up and share their information and their knowledge with us. And first off, I would like to introduce Marcia Davis.
Thank you. I'm Marcia Davis, so thank you very much for all of you being here and showing that your interest in affordable housing and how essential that is to everyone in Lee County. I have been with the Housing Authority since 2019 as the Executive Director. Prior to that, I was in Richmond, Virginia, and I was the Chief Real Estate Officer for about 6 years. And I was actually at the Housing Authority prior to that for 10 years of doing the Hope 6 redevelopment and processes. So my whole career has been in affordable housing, in particular with housing authorities. And the nuances and all the terms that we're going to throw out of how we finance affordable housing, it's not for the faint at heart. It does take a long time when you're dealing with multiple government agencies, and it takes a lot of finesse with a lot of partners. So I'm very fortunate to have a career that I get to go and serve every day. And so I feel extremely blessed because it's a passion. So I get to go do this work every day. We serve so many residents in Lee County, not only building and developing new affordable housing, but we provide rental assistance to over 3,000 families on the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We have multiple properties of low-income housing tax credits. As you see our little name there, I have our development entity, Southwest Florida Affordable Housing Choice Foundation. Yes, it's a mouthful. I have shortened it. But we develop and we have properties under that all over Lee County, not just within the city. So that is our service. We continue to see how we can be a partner with every one of these partners here, all the governmental agencies, and certainly all of our nonprofits, because we're housing people, but there's also services that they need to thrive. So we're very excited, and that's about me. So thank you for having me.
Good morning. I'm CJ. I'm delighted to be here. This was such a pleasure. I know last year Ali Yankadovich was here to talk about policy. So my role in work in resilient housing and communities began about 2011. So I've been working in coastal communities, city of St. Petersburg. I was at the College of Marine Science. And at the time, what I really started to see was that there was a lot of data that was out there, but we weren't using it in a way to support strategic community development and planning. Information where engineers knew the things that were going wrong, but yet we weren't able to really understand how is that going to affect our neighborhoods and communities. And so the state of Florida has been doing some pretty good work to assess vulnerabilities, and that's a lot of important things. So in my role at the Florida Housing Coalition, I'm here just 2 years now, was to really put these pieces together, the materials, the knowledge of what do we mean by a resilient site? And it starts with the flood risk. It starts with the exposure to environmental contaminants, potentially heat, depending on that. Now we see the wildfires of California. So looking at both the hazards and what we talk about is the suitability of a site. So bringing this into the Florida Housing Coalition, which did not have this long-term resilient approach and sustainability. And so that's been my role, is to work with developers and housing authorities and to understand how can we improve old buildings and how can we ensure that the buildings we're building today will be good for the next 50 years and the challenges we face there. So I'm very delighted to be here. I'm not a super policy expert, but I am a connector and a collaborator, and I've been such a huge fan of the league for many years, and I was involved early in the Hillsborough County when I first moved to Florida. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jessica Turner. I'm Partnership Manager for the Home Coalition, which is based out of Collaboratory here. Thank you so much for the nice introduction, Jacquelyn. And I have a way too long presentation later, so I'm going to save some time for that.
So one of the first person that we will have for their presentation will be Marcia. Mhm.
Like I said, I'm Marcia Davis with the Housing Authority of the City of Fort Myers. Just a little bit about us. What I said earlier is that we do serve about 3,000 families, comes out to about 10,000 people all throughout Lee County, because the vouchers can go all over Lee County. So you may not know that if your neighbor has affordable housing assistance, where they're living in the private market. And then we have units that we have are low-income housing tax credit properties, part of redevelopment agents projects that we've had in the past. And then we have other properties surrounded through Cape Coral, Lehigh, and North Fort Myers that we own and manage and have developed. I put together last night, apologies, but I've given this for a number of years, this presentation. And so since I have a captive audience now, I get to share our story about Choice Neighborhoods and one of the biggest projects that we have going on in the Dunbar neighborhood. So I'm going to talk first about our Choice Neighborhoods and what it is, because I know there's, throughout the years, it's maybe a little confusion.
but it'll show you the bigger picture of why partnerships are so important to the sustainability of affordable housing and all that goes in it, because it's not just bricks and mortar. It's all the other partnerships that go along with it. So let me just flip the slide there. CNI is a Choice Neighborhoods grant. And so in 2020, yes, during COVID, we were putting together a grant to apply, and that was for $30 million to transform a neighborhood. And so we started back in 2019 doing a master planning for about a year and a half. We had over 200 stakeholders that came and said, hey, what do you want to see? The target of the project was Southward Village, our oldest public housing site, which was built in 1960, seen its day, time to rebuild. And so we took a approach about a year and a half to do the planning, right? I don't live at Southward Village, so I'm not going to tell people what they want in their community. So this was a collective effort among the folks that live in and around, service providers, what we knew what we needed to build to sustain for the next 30 years. So as we developed that with all of our partners, we came up with the plan. And so in 2020, we submitted to HUD. In $30 million grant sounds like a lot, but it's just seed money. Because what we did was we said, we need that seed money to transform this entire neighborhood. And we are going to leverage all of our partners and all their money. And so when we told HUD, this is our plan, we had leveraged that 30 million with $360 million. That's no small feat for Lee County in a 2-mile radius of a public housing site. So that's the gist of it. I'm not going to go into all the details because we have a nice video. If you got 30 minutes, go to our website, watch the video, because that's during COVID. As you know, nobody was coming to visit each other. Usually you have HUD folks come down and see if your plan's legit. Nobody was coming, so we had to improvise and to tell our story of why we were one of the cities that was deserving. There was only 5 in the country. It was, I think, Newark, New Jersey. There was a few others. Bigger cities usually get this, but we were able to make our case, and we were awarded in May of 2021. So next slide, please. It really focuses on this grant program, 3 things: housing, people, and neighborhoods, right? If I could just go and demolish public housing and rebuild, what is the long-term, what's going to happen in the neighborhood if not more investment is going in the neighborhoods? We may end up back at the same place 30 years from now. So this was an intentional effort to get all of our partners involved, right? Because it can't just be us doing the housing. That's not going to solve all the problems. And so when you hear on the video and you see constantly our partnerships, it's because of all the partnerships that we're going to make this transformation happen. So next slide, please. The city of Fort Myers was our co-applicant, so they're kind of leading the charge on the neighborhood improvements. And so that was very helpful to us that our city was a bona fide partner and had put their resources in as well. So the next slide. So this is a, and I'm going kind of fast, I apologize, but you can watch the 30-minute video, I promise you, when you can't sleep at night. This is the CNI boundary. So we had to pick out from a 2-mile radius around where all the neighborhood assets, what was happening, not just our housing, but what were the other things that were happening in the neighborhood, what was the school district doing, and lo and behold, Franklin Park Elementary. So there were some really significant transformations going on. So this was just going to add to the project. So next slide. So we come up with neighborhood plans. Back, let's see, go back one. Okay, well, maybe the slide has passed, but we have a couple of neighborhood. I don't know why it's not showing up, but I had them listed out. So I know them by heart because I live and breathe this stuff every day. Neighborhood plans, those are critical community improvements that we want to see as a part of the revitalization. Remember, we're just talking about neighborhoods, right? One of the biggest ones was Franklin Park Elementary School. What a huge win for the neighborhood. Brand new community school, and how that was an intentional build. We have the city is doing streetscape improvements along Ford and Edison areas. The new police station was a part of you know, when we told HUD, hey, we're going to address public safety, the city's investing in a brand new police station, and they're well on their way to doing so. We also have invested with the CRA in the McCollum Hall. So as they are developing their plans to get that project going, we have a portion of CNI funds committed to doing that and seeing that through. We also, another neighborhood improvement by the legislature, awarded the city $1 million for an all children's, all abilities playground at Clemente Park. All of these things were intentional so that we could bring all the resources within this 2-mile area of this neighborhood. Also, we had, now my memory's escaping me. It would happen, but those are the general ones. The streetscapes, McCollum Hall, the Clemente Park, and anything else we could dream up before the grant expires. But ultimately, that's where we have focused our neighborhood dollars too, is to help leverage other ones. You may have seen when our first plan was, one of the neighborhood critical community improvements, if you're familiar with the neighborhood, was the junkyard, right? So that was in our plan. Like, hey, we want to partner with the city. We want to get that because that's not conducive to a thriving neighborhood. So since then, the plans change, and obviously things change over time, and we have to adapt to that. But now the CRA and the city are working with a private developer to go in to acquire and to add more housing. Fabulous. Fabulous. That was the whole intention of getting everybody to pay attention to here's the things that we really need to fix. And we need to help thrive in the whole neighborhood. And then we get to the biggest community improvement. As I build housing on this site, we have a commercial center. We have a philanthropic community that have committed to building a neighborhood grocery store, right? And so some of you that are not familiar with the neighborhood, there is not a neighborhood grocery store. Closest one is Walmart. You can get on the bus, go to Walmart off of Colonial, or you can go to the downtown Publix. There used to be years ago, if you've been around long enough, there used to be a Tops where the new Lee Health and stuff was 20 plus years ago, I want to say. I was only 12. No, just so now we have to get the housing up so that little commercial component can go in, and there could be neighborhood markets for all the residents, not just where we're building the housing, but for the folks that live in and around the neighborhood. So next slide. There is kind of a concept of what will take place. Now, we didn't come to this easily because grocery stores are very hard. They're hard to break even. So I'm not in the grocery business, don't have any plans to get in the grocery business at all. But we had some committed partners along this journey that says, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to be an investment in the future of this neighborhood. So we have partialed out about 5 acres on our Southward Village site to be committed just to this. So next slide. And as I talked about before, one of the biggest community improvements was a Franklin Park Elementary School. I don't know how much you know, and I'm not an education person, but I know that has been a dramatic change and how fortunate our kids in the neighborhood that get to attend. So next slide. And they're done. So one of the biggest pieces is done now, and they're here. So I'm going to get to our piece as the housing component. Next slide, please. This was the old Southward Village. It's not there anymore. We've, performed demolition. Everything's gone, preparing a site for the new housing. It just had seen the end of its days. It was 1960. It was the oldest public housing. And trust me, hurricanes have done us no favors throughout the number of years. So there was all reasons as to why, and that we proved to HUD, listen, we have to do better, right? Affordable housing doesn't mean I'm just going to throw up a box. Affordable quality housing that people can feel safe and secure in their housing. So next slide. This is no longer a draft, but it was the phasing plan. So you notice there's phase 1 that's not on site. And then we have phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. And phase 3 is 100% an 80-unit senior complex, because as we looked at the demographics and what was some of the true needs of the residents that we had there and what was on our waiting list, there was a lot of factors taken into account. The need for senior affordable housing. That means over 62. That their only income may be Social Security. Well, I'm just going to use simple math for a second. If I have $700 a month from Social Security, I've got to pay rent, I've got to pay electric, I got to pay food, and then maybe my pharmacy bill or any prescriptions. So the need for senior affordable housing is tremendous. So we were able to address that in the on-site plan. Next slide, please. So this is always what everybody's interested in. What are you building and who's it going to serve? It's all because we are building mixed income communities. So I'm going to walk you through. I know it's new. If you ever have any questions, you obviously can call me. But phase one is an off-site property. I'm going to show you some nice pictures. You probably passed it by and didn't even know, but it is under construction. And so that is our first phase to come up so that we can restart building, have our units coming back online. So this is the mix of the units as in each phase. So phase one has PBV replacement. Anybody want to take a wild guess of what PBV is? So it's project-based vouchers. I'm taking those walking around vouchers and I'm sticking it to a unit so that it stays there for the next 20 years. Subsidy. That means that it makes the unit affordable. So there's a total of 92 units there. 45 will have project-based, 38 are LIHTC. That means low-income housing tax credits because this is part of the financing. That means they're capped at the 60% or below. And then there's 9 market rate units. Sometimes that scares people saying, oh my gosh, you put market rate units in there and it's going to cost 10 times more. Usually by a market study, it's a little bit more than LIHTC rents, a little bit. But there's market rate units. What about that family or that individual that is an essential worker that makes just over $1 of what the income levels are? Just over $1. These are the units that hopefully will serve, known as maybe workforce housing. That phase is scheduled to come online the first quarter of 2026. So we're very excited. If you have been around for a while, you remember the old Pontiac dealership that was on Cleveland Avenue? Anybody remember that? Oh, yes, next to McDonald's and CVS. So right between, well, it's Walgreens. Yep, Walgreens and McDonald's. So we were able to acquire that site and to turn it into mixed-use housing. The front side will have commercial because it does face Cleveland Avenue. So hopefully that will help spur a lot of development along Cleveland Avenue. And this is, as you see, all these things were intentional so that it would help other neighborhoods thrive. So we'll get to that. Phase 2 is on site of Southward Village. When I showed you that phasing plan, first phase is 151 units. That's a lot. You know how much that cost? 70 to 80 million to build. Regardless if we're building affordable or market rate, it costs the same. It's how we finance it and how we keep the rents affordable, right? So we then find ourselves having to participate in programs like the low-income housing tax credit to get investors to come in so that we can keep the rents low and affordable. So no family's paying over 30% of their adjusted income. So on that phase, we'll have 78 project-based. That just means they're subsidized units. We'll have 9 LIHTC units. There's no subsidy, but meaning you can't exceed, the rents won't exceed a certain amount that's at that point, which is established by HUD. And then there's 64 market rate units. Remember, that could be for the guy that makes $5 over, $1 over of what the income levels are, and still try to be an affordable unit for them. There's a lot of folks in our community that have gone off to college, want to come back and want to live in the neighborhood. Here's an opportunity that this is not only 100% subsidized, but it's a mixture so that we can serve a number of folks that need housing. Okay, phase 3. I will leave this presentation, but it goes on and so forth. I did want to touch on, if you'll flip the slide, there's the site plan. All of this is on the video. I promise you, you'll change your life in 30 minutes. Keep flipping. That's just some new renderings of the Southward Village, which will take a number of years to complete. Keep flipping. And there was the off-site housing. There's the picture of Cleveland Avenue. So if you'll flip to the next. There is 4 buildings that will be there. You can flip to the next. There's the renderings. And you've seen it on the way, and so we're very excited about that. We'll keep flipping, and then flip. Overall housing budget, this was, a point in time. It's rose since then. It costs a lot to do that, but there's it's on our website. If you go to community development, under there, the Dunbar Initiative, there's a video link. Keep flipping. And you know what? Here it didn't come. I don't know what's going on with this slide. I think you did it, Eddie. That's okay. I got other things tattooed in my brain. Yeah. So we, along with everybody else, are so excited that we, in Lee County, was blessed with the CDBDR funds. And how is that going to change Lee County as a whole? The county has put $300 million towards affordable housing. And so the first round of, hey, come apply for the money, we put our hand up because we have some needs. And so we applied for rehab money. And that was to rehab existing units that are affordable so that we could maintain and keep up with insurance that didn't cover all the damages and things that we need to do to secure and be resilient as the next future years or next future storms, hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have any. But roughly, we had $24 million awarded to us to do rehab on some existing units, the Renaissance Preserve sites. We have a place on Broadway, landings in East Point that are near Renaissance. So we're actively working with the county to implement those. And here recently, the most important, I think, that has been on everybody's mind is the new construction projects that are coming on. The county has been working diligently to make sure they get this money out and deploy it quickly. I mean, and they've done it in record time, and we're so fortunate to partner with them. We were recently committed for awarding funding for our phase 2, which is about $18.8 million. That's gap financing. Because if you remember, hurricane didn't do us any favors. Cost of construction went up, pricing went up, and I've got to fill the gap. So this is the natural gateway to help fill a gap so that we can get on with building these units. We have a senior project that is off of Lafayette and Cleveland Avenue. That was awarded $17.2 million. That is going to be under construction. We have our permits. That is 62 and older and 100% affordable. And then we have 5300, which is Horizons off of Summerlin and Boy Scout. That currently is an old public housing site that is going to be demolished, and we are in the relocation portion of that. We are building back 230 units of workforce subsidized units there, and we were awarded here recently. They've selected that project again, so we're going through underwriting. I say all that to say is that we are so fortunate at the Housing Authority with all of our partnerships, because in this, we have been awarded almost $80 million of the CBDR funds that we are going to get to work. So thank you for having me. That's the latest and greatest from us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. She did a great job. We have a lot of research that we need to do, but what they're doing is just absolutely amazing. And I can tell you right now, for Fort Myers, we are truly, truly grateful for the work that you're doing. Next up is Jessica Turner, and we're going to hear from her, and she's going to take the mic and give you more information.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm going to go really fast, so you have to pay very close attention. I have so much to tell you guys. I'm so excited. So as you guys remember, I am a partnership manager for, I'm trying to put a timer on here so that Jackie is okay. Hold on a second. Edit. Okay. Okay. 10:04. All right. All right. So here we go. So you want to hand me the clicker so you don't have to do that? All right. So Marcia talked a lot about partnerships. Partnerships are so important. And so that's the whole idea behind collaboratory, right? We're trying to get partners together to make critical change here in Southwest Florida. So today I'm going to be focusing a lot just on Lee County, but I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about the Home Coalition. I have over 150 partners. A bunch of my partners are here in the room, and I'm so excited to see them. And they come from all over the place, many different sectors: real estate, development, nonprofits, government. And we're all united around our big shared, big shared goal that 80% of people in Southwest Florida are going to have access to housing and transportation that costs less than 45% of their income by the year 2040. And so we are working with this housing stability spectrum, and we're trying to create projects all the way across this spectrum. So we're hoping to benefit people who are at the left-hand side of the spectrum who are experiencing homelessness. And as we're moving across that spectrum to the right, people who are threatened with eviction, to people who are paying way more than the 30% that is recommended for housing out of their income, all the way up to people who are stably housed but would like to make that jump from rental to home ownership, for instance. And so here's a look at how our coalition is structured. We have our guiding team, which Marcia is a member of that, and they serve the coalition, which has 3 regional action teams. We've got a policy team, a finance team, and storytelling. And we create projects which help move the needle towards our big shared goal. And so I have a lot of things that I'm really proud about. I can talk to you about that later because you guys are all going to join the coalition at the end of this, and you're going to come to my regional action teams, and it's going to be great. So you can learn about this later. I don't have a 30-minute video. I need to get one. You guys know why safe and stable homes matter. We know that it helps people with their physical health. We know that it helps with education. We have better educational outcomes when students have safe, stable housing. If they're not being moved around month after month because of possible eviction, do you know that every time a child moves that they get set behind 3 months in their schooling? That's unfortunate. And when we're trying to make sure that our students are strong readers and can do math and compete in this global economy, that's just not okay. You guys know that if homes are dangerous, lead paint, or if there is mold, or if we've got pests, which we so often do in Florida, it can cause all sorts of ailments, and that's another expense to our community. It causes people to lose work. It causes their finances, which are already strapped with that high cost of living, that they can't afford to pay for the hospital bills and all of the prescriptions. So we know also that it is a huge economic driver in our communities. I have a stat here that says for every $1 that is spent on either rehabbing or constructing housing, it pays out almost $10. It's $9 and like 50 some cents in dividends for the community. So spending money on housing is good for our economy. It also, when we have more housing, it's putting people to work in construction and then the service industries which support those. So I know I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody in here is on my side, but I just wanted to remind you why all this matters. All right, so I went through all of that. We talked about education. We talked about why it's healthy. So let's talk about Lee County. So if we're focusing on Lee County has had explosive growth. It is out of the 5 counties, 6 out of every 10 new residents have come to Lee County in Southwest Florida. We know that the median age in Lee County is 49 years old. We know that older folks predominantly live closer to the coast, where younger folks and people in our workforce tend to live in more urban and suburban zones. Now, here's something that's really important, and I want you to commit this to memory. More than 70% of households have only 1 or 2 people in them anymore. So larger households, there's just not a trend towards that anymore. And that's going to be really important to think about later on. Right, Brian? Our demographic makeup. Lee County is predominantly a white community. So compared to Florida, we are whiter. We're a little bit older than the rest of Florida as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And then let's take a look at some demographics as far as the cost of living here. So we can see different median incomes for the different demographics here. And then something that is distressing to me is if you look at the cost burden, that's the bottom 2. So cost burden is if people are paying more than 30%, or severely cost burden is people that are paying more than 50% of their income on housing. So for our African American residents and Hispanic residents, it's close to 40%, over 40% of the population are cost burdened or severely cost burdened. So we are still growing. And unfortunately, it's not all wealthy people that are moving down from New York and New Jersey. We also have folks that are moving here that are automatically going to be cost burdened because of how expensive it is. So by the year 2036, which is right around the corner, we're going to have more than 20,000 new households that are going to be added to that cost burden list. Please note that most of the jobs that are in Lee County are in the service sector, which is 40% of our demographic that is working, and they pay pretty low wages. If you look at the top 10 most common occupations, and I actually got this information from the Florida Housing Coalition, which just completed this incredible housing study for us, but only 2 of the top 10 occupations make enough to afford a 2-bedroom market value rent. So that's not great news. And if my goal is that 80% of people are not going to pay more than 45%, right now 53%, no, I'm sorry, the average, I'm sorry, I'm just so excited to tell you guys this stuff. The average cost for housing and transportation in Lee County is 53%. So that's a lot of money that we're spending on housing and transportation. So we have a severe housing shortage, which is concentrated for people who make 80% and below of area median income. So the area median income is about $80,000. So we need to be building way more units for folks that make between 80 and especially folks that make 50% or 30% of our area median income. It's really difficult, even if you are a household that earns 140% of our area median income, you would have a gap if you bought a moderately priced home in Lee County. And if you can find a moderately priced home, please let me know. Rent prices have obviously increased dramatically. We have a shortage of homes that are for sale that are under $200,000. A lot of our homes were built before 1990, which means that the cost for their upkeep is going to be more expensive as we move forward, as well as having a lower resilience to natural disasters, which we so often encounter. And remember I told you that the predominant household size was 1 or 2 people? We keep on building these detached single-family homes, which are traditionally 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. So in Lee County, 35% of our homes are that way. And in Cape Coral, 89.5% of the homes in Cape Coral are those larger detached single-family homes. So I just went through a whole bunch of problems. Don't worry, I have the solution. Yes. And you know what? It's you guys and all of the partners. So we have this tremendous action plan that was put together by the Florida Housing Coalition, and it has 5 pillars. There is, we have to be making sure that we're activating all funding sources that are available to us. Marcia is an absolute genius about that. So I'm actually going to skip over to forming and sustaining strategic partnerships. We need to take people like Marcia, who knows about every type of funding that can be stacked to do affordable housing. And we need to create cohorts of smart people like her that are training more people to build more affordable housing. So it's all about collaborating and sharing that wealth of knowledge that people have. We need to change some zoning and land use in our communities. We need to, I talked about having those smaller household sizes. We need to build some smaller houses. So smaller footprint houses, accessory dwelling units. We need to change some of our setbacks. We need to change some parking requirements to make it easier for folks to build affordable housing. We need to make it more affordable for developers to acquire land. If it is more affordable to acquire land, then those developers should be passing along those cost savings to the people that are living there. And then finally, we need to make sure that the people in the community who need the most help are getting that help. And so we need to make sure that we have people that are in the community experiencing the most barriers, that they are contributing to this action plan. So I will be happy to answer questions a little bit later on, but I know that we're so excited to have CJ here today, who is here from the Florida Housing Coalition. So I'll look forward to answering those questions later, and later on I'll put up a QR code so you guys can all join my coalition. It's not my coalition, it's your coalition, forgive me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Now I gotta make a movie. There we go. For you, my dear.
How exciting. We have answers to a lot of our things that we found that we need. So, and we have these partners that are here that are experts in making sure that we can implement some of the initiatives that we have. The next person that we have here is CJ Reynolds with the Florida Housing Coalition. I'm so glad to have her here. She's actually answered some of my questions already. So we have a lot of things that are going in place, and we're going to be partnering with CJ very, very soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, CJ Reynolds.
The big green arrow. Oh, it's a dotty thing. Okay. There. So thank you so much for inviting me. And it is inspiring to be with incredible, to see the development, see the partnerships growing. So I am going to set my glasses down here, and then I'm going to set my timer. And you'll hear my timer go off in 10 minutes. So, because I want to talk to you, I don't want to just talk at you. I think one of the key things that in the 2 years that I've been with the coalition is the incredible role of development policy. So the value of the partnerships and work that the league does and can do can really get to some deep resilience in communities and understanding the policy and the gaps we have on information and education. And the power of data is a significant thing that we need to take more advantage of. And I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about these things. And it's just better to get all of this stuff on the screen first. So first and foremost, I've been involved with the Disaster Housing Task Force for almost 2 years, and now I'm just a regular member, which is really good for me in that case. But the first thing was coordinating between multiple organizations to facilitate communication. So how do nonprofits, how do local governments, how does the private sector, how do recovery groups all work together and know where to prioritize, where to go, and how to help people? And one of the things that we looked at, it's the third bullet point, was that I was like, I wanted, where's the dashboard? I'm working in Hillsborough County. I'm up in Pasco County. And how do I know? And how does the local recovery group know where to go? And what kind of housing impacts have been there? So this wasn't really available. FEMA collects information from every single person who turns in an application. So one of the missions I had was to create a dashboard, a statewide, publicly accessible dashboard for the hurricanes in real time. And so FEMA's application information, it's private, but they provide aggregated data. And so we can look at this now, and we'll be launching this in a couple of weeks for Debbie, Helene, Milton, and back to Idalia. So I haven't had time to go back and look at it, but you will have access. Community members, you'll be able to go in and look by income level, by type of housing. So let's say you're working on a program, you're like, all these manufactured housing things, we want to understand what that's about. So you as an organization will have the power to look at the data that a lot of the folks inside a city or county emergency management have. Now it's aggregated, so people's data is protected. So you can only go down to the zip code level, but you all know your individual communities, and there can be more analysis done to better understand things. But we can look at income level, housing or renters, and type of housing, as well as age. I forgot the other social factor that FEMA aggregates. So we wanted to let you know that this will be coming soon, and the importance of that. You can see statewide patterns. We see particularly one thing I just did a report on, is that the need for legal assistance for homeowners who don't have clear title. They're immediately denied FEMA assistance. If you don't walk in with the right type of documentation, you won't get FEMA assistance. Now, if you get a denial letter because you didn't have the right documentation, let's say you inherited the home from your grandmother and you have a bunch of siblings and, nothing ever really got cleared up, but people live there, and so FEMA requires certain things. There's a lot of flexibility FEMA's done, but the opportunity for pre-disaster cleaning up of titles is a great legal aid opportunity. And from Milton, we could see across the state that there were 32,000 folks who were denied FEMA assistance because they didn't have all the proper documentation. So you can go down and look at that. One of the things I wanted to share on the positive side about building resiliently, and of course the building code has changed, and every year it gets a little better. A lot of times the Florida building code, we are fortunate to have a statewide building code, and the counties that are in coastal areas have strong programs. There is an additional program called Fortified, which is established by the Institute for Insurance, Business, Home, and Safety. So the insurance sector got together a number of years ago and established Fortified certification programs. This is a voluntary third-party certification. So a developer can say, I want to build even better than the code. And so the quest becomes, can we do it affordably and resiliently? And so I'm very excited. We've been involved in a cost-benefit analysis funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And this is really happening right. I'm happy to share it with you. So there's 2 properties that are going to be, they're in process of being built in the county. One of them is Banyan Development. It's the Hibiscus Project in North Fort Myers. And I'm going to encourage you all to go to the groundbreaking of the Hermosa North Fort Myers project on Cleveland on Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock, if you can. I'm going to be out of town. I can't be here. So collaborating with developers who are building, looking at their construction practices, looking at the kind of designs that they've decided to implement, and comparing them to these third-party certification standards. How do they stack up? And you guys are going to have some of the first potentially certified properties. This is multifamily. Hermosa's 88 units for less than 60% of the area median income. Seniors and veterans is a priority. So great, exciting stuff right here. And hope there's no media in the room, but they'll launch that and they'll talk about their efforts. But the point was, this developer understood the value of building resiliently before this. Now, the benefit for him of having this third-party certification will lead to better insurance availability down the road, which helps him maintain his affordability down the road, right? So that's one of the key things. So excited to share that. We're also working with the American Institute of Architects in a partnership to better engage architects. I've seen some really ugly housing, affordable and luxury. And I was like, why are we painting the side of the south wall dark gray? Is that a trendy thing? Maybe it's good for New Jersey, but not so much where it gets kind of hot down here, right? So how do we help design be exciting, resilient, sustainable, and where are the architects of today? And how do we help build the future generation of our homegrown architects, right? We get a lot of development that comes from out of the state. So they bring in their development knowledge and climate knowledge, right? We need things that fit us. Resilient guided growth, one of the big projects we're looking at, where there is public land and where there is commercial land, how can we optimize this? But my goal is always to make sure you're building on higher ground, or if you're going to build in the swampy area, you incentivize resilient development. That is where we need to go. So this is a training program for local governments to better understand that. So just some of the key things, that's the project of the guided growth as we go through this. But it's an exercise that in the future, as a group, as a community, you could look up your own locally commercial, vacant commercial land, if there is such thing anymore. Everybody owns everything, right? As we always say, oh, there's no one, this is vacant lot, no one must own it. Of course, it's all owned. So the question becomes, where do we build? How well can we build it? And how can we pass this on to ensure that this is going to stay sustainable and develop? And one of the key long-term safety, security, and resiliency goals we have is to support this, what we call permanent affordability. So you may have seen some great examples. They're called community land trusts. This was also in Jessica's plan, because it's part of our plan of action in the Florida Housing Coalition. So when our community land trust says we're going to, we own the land, nonprofit or a local government is established, the legal owner of the land. In that case, the developer does not have to bear the cost of owning the land. The developer can put single-family housing, townhomes, or multifamily properties on there. And in the case of single-family homes, if you remove the cost of the land from the picture of the price, it brings the housing price down. And it also, because these things are called ground leases, it's a 99-year permanent affordability. So I said to them when they were explaining this, and I landed in the office and I said, permanent affordability, 99 years. What about resiliently?
are you looking at where sea level rise is going to go? Where are you looking at flooding already goes? It's going to get worse. So that's when we integrated this resilient site selection, permanent affordability. We're excited to talk about that, and thank you for having me here. One of the things I wanted to say is what I'm seeing more and more is the need for education of homeowners who are in the disaster recovery planning mode. We have a lot of counties, and we were talking about this earlier this morning, that receive funding from the state or CDBG disaster. And folks who don't understand finance, and I'm going to say I'm one of them, but I've had enough experience, like, I don't know if I should refinance. I don't know if I should take this loan. I don't trust a loan from the government. They're going to take my house away. So we have years of lack of trust. We have lack of understanding of financial. It's complicated, right? So should I take out a loan from the government? What do they mean 0% and forgivable in 10 years and all of this? So I think there's an enormous education need about financial resiliency and home ownership. And when we have all these new buyers and new folks who've been renting their entire life, and maybe their parents were renters and they don't have any experience maintaining a home, the cost of fixing and maintaining older homes is not cheap, right? I've got an old one, and I was like, oh, it looks pretty sturdy. And then I'm like, oh my God, I need a new roof, and then I need a new thing, and then another new thing. And anyway, hold on, turn this off. I can't see it. Stop. Stop. There we go. I was like, I can't see it. So the key of this, and then there's a policy that was enacted last year to support home buyer education. It's called the Florida Flood Disclosure Law. So if you are selling your home, any real estate agents in the room? Okay. So anybody selling a home, and it went into effect October of 2024. If your house has been flooded, you've applied to FEMA or you've applied for insurance, you must disclose this. And you think this should be obvious. This should have been done, what? This is just enacted as law in 2024. So the notion of teaching home buyers, future home buyers, to ask for that, to look at a flood map, to look at their past improvements. I'm walking around neighborhoods, I'm looking for the mark line on the wall, right? And I'm knocking on things and I'm looking, teaching people. So there's an enormous opportunity for being positive about home buyer education, but we also need to help our folks who own homes today figure out how to take advantage of the state and federal funding that is there to repair their home. Otherwise, we will continue to experience disaster gentrification. And also I'm going to say, lastly, homeowners insurance versus flood insurance. And I know a lot of areas here are in flood areas, and that puts the insurance at very high levels. But I can tell you, insurance is so important for people's recovery. But housing that's old is not going to be affordable and insurable. So we have this dynamic of not only do we have these great buildings we need way more faster building for new homes that can be affordable, like the starter homes, the townhomes. I come from Chicago. We would have stacked, 3 flats is what we call them, as shared patios and things along those lines. More creative home design that's resilient, which means it's going to be elevated. So thank you for allowing me the extra 2 minutes. I apologize.
Absolutely. Wow. That was pretty good, wasn't it? A lot of information. Let's give them another hand, because I think all of the information that all 3 of these experts have shared has been phenomenal, phenomenal. I saw our honorable mayor, Kevin Anderson. I just wanted to introduce him and thank him for coming and joining us. We'd like to thank him also for his commitment towards ensuring that Fort Myers is heading towards affordable housing and providing the housing, and actually trying to meet that gap of housing that we're experiencing right now. So our next thing will be our Q&A. And I just wanted to let everyone know, I know you probably have a lot of questions personally to some of these ladies or whatever. We will have a networking opportunity afterwards, so you'll be able to speak with them if you'd like to, or get more information. So if you do have any questions, please put them on the card, and I will go ahead and try to address them. Thank you. All right, so while we're going through this, I'm just going to go ahead and start off with some of the questions. And I think what I'll do is, unless they are specifically geared towards, a certain person, whichever one of you guys would like to answer the questions or address it, you're welcome to do so. So this is for Marcia. Where did people from Southward Village go when the neighborhood was demolished?
So we have a relocation plan that we had to enact before any of the activities started happening. Majority of the families that were at the prior Southward Village went to other units that we had available, whether that was in some of our senior developments, whether that was in other housing that we had developments, or they had the opportunity to have a voucher to go into the private market.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Next question. How do people apply for the affordable housing sites, for the new housing sites?
Okay, this is not all Marcia Day. We got these two. When our new developments come online, there and our website will do a lot of media blitz to make sure that folks are aware when these waiting lists open. They'll have private management companies. They will do marketing and outreach to the community, obviously on all the social media outlets to know that it is available. And when I just want to clarify, so I'm sure this question's coming up in your repertoire, is the folks that lived at Southward Village will have first right refusal of the new units when they come available. And that's twofold. They have first right refusal, but some choose not to move back. They're happy in their new place and, don't want to go through the hassle of moving again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This may be more for Jessica, if you may know, or either Marcia. What is the short-term and long-term strategic community development plans for Lee County and Southwest Florida, if you know?
Every community, every county and municipality, they have to have 10-year comp plans. And so I know the city of Fort Myers is actually working on a new one right now. And every year we also have, in order to get funding for affordable housing, there are affordable housing incentive plans that have to be turned in every single year. So one of the things that we have discussed in our policy meetings with the coalition is actually sitting down with getting all of the various plans in Southwest Florida and seeing where there is our commonalities. We like to say that there's energy around those ideas so that we can have a regional unified plan to pursue some of those incentives. It might be things like making permitting faster for affordable housing, which actually a lot of municipalities already do. Or it could be accessory dwelling units, which you guys can tell I'm really excited about. So that is something that we as a coalition are looking at to try to figure out what exactly the direction is for the region or for different municipalities independently.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just to follow up on that with the accessory dwelling units, do you know of any zoning restrictions in the city of Fort Myers that are preventing that from going forward or may be a barrier?
Yes, actually, back in the old days, there's actually some really beautiful homes close by here that before the land use ordinances were changed, there are some accessory dwelling units or apartments above garages. So there are some that were sort of grandfathered in from a long time ago. But if you have land and it is zoned as single family, which most are, you cannot build accessory dwelling units. I think in Lee County there is a way, but the rules are really difficult. There's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through, and it's very expensive. So actually, I know that this year, AARP and the Florida Association of Realtors are putting putting forward legislation at the state level to try to have, to make it legal to have accessory dwelling units throughout the whole state. So we would like to work at a local level to advocate for accessory dwelling units, but it might be faster if that legislation is put through at the state. So if that's something that you care about a lot, let your legislator know.
Absolutely. Does everyone know who your legislator is in this area? So you know who you need to contact. So definitely research it, find out, and make sure you can contact them. CJ, I just wanted to make sure, did you have something?
Yeah, I
regarding
wanted
that?
to add something about the accessory dwelling unit and any outreach that is really needed here. ADU is a planning term. We need a community term that will resonate to ensure support of this. You know, they used to be called coach homes or, I hate the word granny flat because it just assumes that everybody lives in a thing like that. But so I think, as you look at any embarking to support that program, design examples so people can get excited about what it is that they could potentially live in and how it's the big value and the anti-affordability drive is like you're going to drive down my property values by putting ugly things in that are not aligned. So good design and better names are desperately needed. And I don't have any answers, but I'm just saying if you got creative and your collaboration, like homes that resonate with communities, tiny homes, I don't think I want to live in one. It sounds, I love the design of them, but the name of it to me turns it off. I grew up I like the idea of large, but maybe that's not it. So we need to really work on describing the housing for different generations of folks and different lifestyles, right? I'm not sure what that looks like. The whole planning community is probably going to just roll their eyes at me, but
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. I really appreciate it. Yes. Well, I think it was one, I believe it was Jessica that mentioned about having a little apartment above your, for example, above your garage. But if either one of you guys would like to elaborate on that.
There's a bunch of ways that accessory dwelling units can be built. They can be attached to the primary dwelling or they can be detached. A lot of times they are put above garages or, unfortunately, we don't really have basements here. So up north, a lot of them will be basement apartments. But they should have, and this is something that makes it difficult in a lot of places, they should have their own kitchen, their own bathroom, so that a person can live independently there. And it's really a great thing for if a homeowner wants to generate extra income, they can rent out the spot. Or the reason I would like it personally, it can be for a family member who either wants to, maybe you want to age gracefully in your own home and you want to have your grandson come and live in the accessory dwelling unit and help take care of you. Or I have a son who is autistic, and it would be really hard for him to find a place and not be taken advantage of by a landlord. I think I'd be a good landlord, and I could charge him a reasonable rent, and it adds value to my home. So, so that's that. And if you go online and just type in ADU or accessory dwelling unit, and you're right, we do need to call it something sexier. But there's all sorts of great pictures. I think they're so cool. So I think you're going to like it too.
And I have one person over here that wanted to kind of explain where some of them might be located.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that if you would like to see some accessory dwelling units in the wild that have been very successful in Dean Park Historic District, where I live, there are quite a few accessory dwelling units. You have to walk down some of the back alleys behind the houses to see some of them, but there is a self-guided walking tour. It's about a mile east of here. And if you go to the Dean Park Triangle first, you can get the self-guided walking tour brochure, and that'll give you a map of the whole neighbourhood. And yeah, you can see quite a few accessory dwelling units. A lot of the houses have little coach houses that have a garage with an apartment on top out the back. And they have been really successful in providing naturally occurring market rate housing for a century and change right here in Fort Myers already.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. Define affordable housing. What is actually considered in the city of Fort Myers, for example, affordable housing?
Is that a loaded question? No. The general term is you're not paying more than 30% of your income towards housing. That's what's affordable, whether it's somebody that's making 20 grand a year or somebody that's making 50 grand a year. It's that you're not paying more than 30% of your income towards housing.
Okay. Any questions on that? I think some people have, with some of the meetings that have been recently held, there was some conversations regarding mixed income housing. So I think some people may need an explanation of exactly what is it? And could you elaborate, could either one of you elaborate on mixed income? And I think it will probably be better for you, Marcia, since you're building
Sure.
those, a lot of those.
So mixed income, meaning when I showed you the chart earlier, just to kind of provide an example, is that we're assisting families that are making incomes in different ranges, mixed income, right? So if I make 100% of the AMI for Lee County, then I could move into a mixed income community. What that truly is made up on, and I think when I shared that example is to try to make it very understandable for folks that don't work in it every day, is that if it's a subsidized unit, you can't make over 30%, or you can't make over 50% of the AMI. So I think right now, if my memory's serving me correctly, the area median income for a family of 4 is about $80,000. I haven't committed every number to my brain, but roughly. That means that somebody can't earn over 50% of the area median income. Roughly can't make over 40,000 to move into certain units. That's all that means, is there's just different levels how each unit is subsidized. Some are subsidized, some are not. If it is not, then that means that they could go, over 100% of the area median income. If it's has LIHTC, the low income housing tax credit program, this is described and it's prescribed by the IRS that you can't move in and you can't exceed 60% of the area median income. Hence, that the rents are set so that it's affordable to somebody that's not making more than 60% of the AMI. I don't either. So I don't have all the answers, but I do know that I have a great partner in Habitat for Humanity that is building neighborhoods, who is certainly a partner in CBDR funding, has been awarded a lot of money to build neighborhoods and affordable home ownership. So that is a wonderful resource for families that are looking for home ownership because Habitat for Humanity is doing a tremendous job of building homes. And what happens generally is that they try to provide grant opportunities that buy down the mortgage so that it becomes affordable for the family.
Thank you so much, Marcia. This kind of goes to regulations, and it says, and I'll read it directly from the card. I've heard that below 60% AMI housing is impossible for developers to include in mixed housing. Do you agree? If so, why and how? So, CJ, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on the on mixed housing and the affordability for developers to actually build it?
Well, when you have market rate housing and affordable, and I'm going to just punt this back over to Marcia, but when you have a mixed of apartments, so let's say you have 100 units and you design, they're 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, and then you're going to indicate, well, some of these units have deep affordability. They're going to be super, super affordable. And then another percentage of those units will be at that 50%, 60%. It all comes down to where the tax credits and the financial aspects and how that gets put together. Is it possible? It is possible. We see developers doing the work. So that's the generic aspect of it. So I'll push it, share it back over to Pat.
Marcia?
It is, because there's a niche of affordable housing developers, right? So, you have to become a jack of all trades when it comes to the different financing sources. I keep going back to the very similar or simple explanation. It costs the same to build a market rate unit and an affordable unit. It's all in the matter of how you finance it so that you can keep some of the units that affordable, which requires going after different financing sources, i.e. the low-income housing tax credit program, grant programs, affordable housing trust funds, so that those particular units remain affordable. I think that, when you look at mixed income communities, and I just use mine for example, I'm going to use one phase of 151 units that's going in. If I showed you the example, that 60 of them are market rate. That means that I can't finance those with those affordable housing programs. I have to finance those privately, right? That means there's no subsidy in the tax credit. There's no equity that's going to those market rate units. So I, along just like a private developer, have to figure out a way to finance the market rate units within a mixed income community. So I know it gets very complicated, but it is possible. Because affordable housing is being developed all over the state of Florida, thanks to Florida Housing Finance Corporation and the allocation of tax credits.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hold on one second. I want to make sure. Oh. Nobody else have one. Okay.
All right. Kind of piggybacking on what he was saying about the cost of 300,000 and both of your answers. Do you work with developers from all around the country, or just the partners that you have here locally, in order to see what's happening nationally? Because we know that the cost of living is different in different areas as well. Like you can move to Georgia and Alabama and have a much lower cost of living. And so when they build their homes or what have you, they're 125,000. Is it because we're in Southwest Florida, hurricanes, or the developers you're working with, that you're getting that cost and the designs? All right, I know some of the Habitat homes that were originally built had the siding on it, and then I saw down in Collier County they had concrete. Tampa, they have concrete. Georgia, they have brick homes that look like craftsman style homes. I mean, so what or how? I've seen some of that have been built over in Dunbar as well. They're concrete block, but there's like no space in between them. I don't think you can get a car in between those. Then I went down to Arcadia to a monster truck show a couple of weeks ago and saw some of the homes down there, and they were affordable housing. They had 2-car garages, land in the front and back, and were horizontal to the road. So I was just trying to figure out, how do you determine that, and can you get a better cost, a lower cost for those 300 instead of 300,000? That sounds really high to me.
One of the biggest costs that goes into construction of homes is the cost of the land. It's the biggest expense, and it's more expensive to live here in Southwest Florida, especially in the coastal communities, than it is in Arcadia or in Georgia or Alabama. The land is, I mean, those are developments that are being refurbished. Yes.
I think in general, when it comes to affordable home ownership, some of the same things are applicable to home ownership that's not affordable. The cost of construction has increased, and that has affected everyone. And I think when the building materials or the availability of building materials, those are things that have have increased since COVID. Then you add on hurricanes. And I hadn't seen a GC yet saying I'm going to slash my prices 25%. And you have to make up for that. And so that all goes into the cost. You know, materials don't cost the same they did 10 years ago. And it's staggering, which leads to the affordability of how we have to go out and seek other funding to bring down that mortgage so that it remains affordable.
Just want to say that's a very good question. Like, why do things cost so much, and how can we look at it differently? I'm having spoken to the developers that are doing the North Fort Myers project. We're trying to do that construction cost comparison and looking at affordability from a higher level of resilience perspective. One of them told me that the cost, because they develop all over the state, and some of them are also developing in other states, the cost of concrete here is 30% more than Columbia County, because there's another development going up on the inland side, which has less, 30% more for concrete here. Why is that? I don't know. So our goal is to begin to document the cost of certain kinds of materials that can support resilience. So there's impact rated windows and non-impact rated windows. Why do they cost more? Who can sell them at a discount and get a better price for us, right? So that's one of the initiatives our group is looking at is there variability that isn't based on reality, but subject to market demands? Okay, that is a reality, but looking at those factors. So I think one of the things we haven't really talked about, we've talked about multifamily and we've talked about single family. Manufactured housing has improved in quality over the past decade, and they are highly resilient. And if you attach them in the correct way, and they are substantially more affordable, and you can get them on the lot faster than a traditional stick-built house. There's a community bias against mobile homes, right? Because we've seen the old style version of them. At our conference this past year, we had 2 units that came out. One was a 3-bedroom and another one was a smaller unit. They built them in brought them in, trucked them in. We have to, this is a policy issue. So looking at where are we going to support communities that are the new version of manufactured housing that can be resilient, are cute with new designs, and are much more affordable. So taking stock of that, I think, is going to be an important aspect of looking at that, because the thousands of people, and I love Habitat, but we cannot build traditional family housing fast enough. So we have to look at how can we optimize townhomes, 3 flats, and where you can actually own those units, not just force people to build and rent forever. So the more rental units we build at the expense of single family or small multifamily properties that can be owned, we create a longer legacy of disparity of home ownership. So I'd like you to think about how can we get housing affordability that's attractive and resilient, but it also can go up faster and support home ownership. And that's the American dream, right? And we want to support that. And it creates a long-term financial stability for the community against all kinds of stuff. So thank you for letting me on my soapbox for that minute.
Oh, definitely. I think one of the things that we need to make sure that we know where we can go and get some of this information. So this is from the Florida Housing Coalition, correct? And we would be able to go and start tracking this and comparing, 30% is a lot of money, a huge difference between some other areas. So one of the questions, like it was said, why is it so much more expensive? I know we have a ton of questions, but we have to stay on track. And I'm going to follow this up with this last question for you guys. How can we incentivize contractors to adopt to using technology for more resilient building methods, where they can build it, but build it faster and be able to meet the needs of the people and close that housing gap? Any recommendations?
No, I don't have anything. I think everybody wants to build quicker, and I'm just not in that space, and I don't want to try to answer something that I don't know. But I do know this even goes back to build quicker. The workforce that we have in Lee County and Southwest Florida, and I know that Tess is working so hard with Future Makers to get the workforce that we need to work for the subcontractors, to work for the general contractors, so there's not a labor shortage and things are being able to produce quicker.
I'm going to
Yes.
jump in because this was a
Thank you, Marcia.
key issue when we started studying initially FEMA's programs, and then I look at other state disaster recovery programs. There's examples with the state of Texas where they used their CDBG DR money to pilot different kinds of building design and mechanisms. And if you do a whole neighborhood of 3D printed concrete homes, it can be much more affordable, resilient. It has to be designed, has to look like the local culture. It can't just look like a hacienda of Texas, right? But you can build in, it makes it affordable. But that is a technology that Florida doesn't and hasn't yet understood the design level that's required, bringing in one, the kind of information. So this is a workforce development initiative and opportunity. And if you guys can make it happen down here, it can spread to the rest of the state, right? Because where you have, it doesn't work for a single home. It's not going to be affordable if you're just doing one home because you have to have the scale. But where you have land, you can do it. It's been done in other places, and it's within below a $300,000 price point. Now, I don't know, the concrete issue is my challenge to find out, like, well, they need concrete, but the concrete's 30% more here. So putting all these factors together, supporting innovative workforce initiatives, because it's a computer program. You still need your electricians and your plumbers and your but you need different, you need people to put in the windows, but you need different trainings mechanisms. You got great universities down here, vocational programs. So it looks to me it's an innovation in housing workforce development first, and then backing down into that. So, good luck. I'll be here. I'm watching and rooting for you guys. I don't mean good luck in a facetious way. I want to see it happen.
Jessica?
Just a really quick plug about that. So Marcia mentioned Future Makers, which they are the coalition that we are using their success as our model. And recently, Future Makers was awarded a grant, and you're going to be, and I should have Tessa speak about this, but there actually will be a construction sector that they're going to be working on to try to create a pipeline for people to learn exactly those trades that are important to make sure that our workforce has the skills to build in, especially green development and the new ways of construction for our area. So that's really exciting, and they've done really great work. So
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give them another hand? And I'm so sorry, and thank you so much. Thank all three of you for sharing your information and just getting us a little bit more knowledgeable to some of the things that we can do, advocating, joining with you, Jessica, and because it's going to definitely take a team to do this. Thank you again, CJ, for all of your information. This is somewhere with the Florida Housing Coalition we can actually go and read more about some of the things that we can bring back to Florida, back to this area, and be able to speak to some of our city and county leaders, and our leadership to try to implement. And Marcia, pass off to you. That's all I can say. Pass off to you. Next, do we have any of our stakeholders in the room right now? If you are, raise your hand. Some of our stakeholders that might be offering some housing or anything like that. Oh, we have one. And just take a minute to tell us about who you are and what you're doing in the community.
I'm shy. I'm really shy. My name is Arnisha. Nice to meet everybody. My company is called Blue Gym Housing. What I do, sorry. What I do is I acquire homes. Rather if I'm renting them from landlords that approve my business plan, or rather if I own them, I try to target the homeless population. I try to target veterans, and I have some moms that are single moms that are struggling as well. So we do a shared living business living model. So that way, you know, you're renting out a room or two, and then everything's included with them. And I also provide household cleaning supplies and things along that nature to help people, whether they're transitioning or just trying to do more of a long-term savings so that they can get their own home ownership. There we go. So I have a mom that's, you know, I'm working with her. She's a mom of three. She's a single mom living there, and I'm helping her along the way to saving and try to purchase a home. She's working with Habitat in the process. So I trying to rub some shoulders with people and meet individuals and see if we can team up and work together to help everybody find, you know, what works best for everybody. Because the biggest thing I see is a lot of veterans are homeless, or some people aren't veterans, you know, some are both, that need help. And I'm trying my best to hand out a lend out a helping hand to everybody that I can. So I hand out my cards. I have many, many cards that I can hand out to people and to make the business connections. Thank you guys.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes. Oh. Did I miss Brian? Oh.
Oh, the pressure. I'm sorry. My name is Brian Sodra. I'm a general contractor. Listen, I'll be honest. I really admire these ladies. I'm thankful for being in the community. And I want to help. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Thank you.
If you guys go to Minneapolis, it's .com, right? Yep. So he's a general contractor, but he's trying to construct small footprint homes. Let's call them that instead of tiny homes, and they are absolutely beautiful. So you guys should go check them out and talk about some really like the technology also that he is using. There's some really creative methods of building these homes. So if you're interested, check it out.
Thank you, Jessica. So I'm Jill Morrissey with Jessica Dunley. We were here from Finemark Bank, local bank here in Fort Myers. And through Jessica's Home Coalition, I met Brian. And I've been here for 6 years in the affordable housing space. And Brian, I am so excited about Minneapolis Builders. He's got a plan for 50+ units near the Edison Bridge to, build these homes or using 3D printing, concrete builds. I'm so excited. And wanted to also highlight at Finemark Bank, we have an affordable housing program, which is specially designed for income qualified homeowners who are 80% or less AMI. We have a lower than market interest rate. We waive our down payment assistance, our processing fee, and a higher loan to value. So their down payment is less, because usually the down payment is a big hurdle to home ownership. So we have an actual program where we're trying to help the affordable housing borrowers get into their home. So, there's a lot of help with subsidies and banks and down payment assistance. There's a lot. So the more we can get the word out, the better.
Nice.
With you too.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have to tell you, I met Brian almost about 6 or 7 months ago, and to see him so committed, and technology, man, we got to keep up with it. Otherwise, we're going to get left behind. So this is a first step into looking forward to being able to provide the affordable housing that we know we can do if we're committed to sticking with the technology, moving forward with the technology, but also partnering with the right people to make it happen. And we can do it. We can really do it, but it's going to take this coalition to make it happen, working with Jessica, working with CJ, and definitely supporting Marcia and everything that she's doing within this community. So what I'm going to do is turn the mic back over to our president. And I love calling her my president. Just love it. Our president of the League of Women Voters, Sandy Frank.
Thank you, Jacquelyn, and thank you, panelists. It was fabulous. We've learned a lot, and we have a lot to do, and we look forward to working with you and all of you who are in the room today. I am going to be brief. We do try to stay on time as much as we can. I want to let you know that the League is a volunteer organization, and this event and everything we do is planned by people in this room and our other members. And I thank all the leaders and especially Nancy, who does the coordination, and Eddie, it's great to have you in charge of the tech. So we're learning and getting other people involved, and thank you for the support that you did. Reminder, we're going to continue this conversation with the leaders who are here, as well as through our committees, and our next educational event will be on the community rating system, and we'll be talking about flood insurance reductions, but it also continues the discussion of how do we make ourselves resilient? How can our housing be resilient so we don't have to continue to build and rebuild and repair? That will be in this room again, March 1st, same time frame. The program starts at 9:30. We do have the registration is up for that. It's through Eventbrite. And those of you who are on our email distribution list, you will get an invitation opportunity to do that. If you haven't signed up to get emails from us, please do that so we can make sure that you get information on that event as other things that are happening, including we want to remind you to register to vote, to renew your vote by mail it has to be renewed for 2025 and 2026. You thought you renewed it for the last election. Well, you have to do it for future elections as well. We have petitions, right to clean water, and Medicaid expansion. And the League has legislative priorities, and the legislature will be starting soon. And so look for updates on what's happening there. I encourage you to be informed and to make your voices heard with elected officials and at the ballot box, because what elected officials do and government does affects your lives and those of your neighbors and friends and family. So again, I'd like to thank the speakers for your important work and for sharing information with us, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Jacquelyn, thank you. You're a fabulous moderator as always. And housekeeping, if you have coffee cups, please leave them on the carts outside, on the cart outside the room. So again, thank you all for participating. We look forward to seeing you next month and in the months ahead. Thank you.
I'll ask him for it, but it's really great to see that.
One more thing, ladies and gentlemen, it is never too late to join the League of Women Voters. Please join. What we do for the community, and we do for everyone.